Hello and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey and I am here to talk about women's professional road cycling with, well, an incredible group of people today. We are going to talk about the world's road races. We'll do a brief dive into the U23 and junior races, but we're going to focus a lot today on the elite race from Rwanda. It was something to watch. Gracie Elvin, hello.
Hello, good to be here and definitely missing our regular besties, but pretty stoked to have two special women with us today.
Yep, Lauren and Georgie couldn't make it, but we managed to pull in two of the best in the business. Grace Brown, hello.
Hey. Yeah, I've listened to a lot of your episodes, so it's cool to be on here.
Yeah, I think we've maybe had you on for an interview pod when you retired last year, but it wasn't like an official roundtable pod. So this is your first full episode with us. It's pretty exciting.
I'm stoked to be here.
Yep, and Iris Slappendel is here. Iris, hello.
Hey, thank you. I'm always at my best when I'm a last minute call up, so yeah. Don't worry.
Well, we have a whole lot to dive into today. We're going to forego talking about much news because I think that once we dive into the elite road race, we've got too much to talk about. And there's also not really that much news. One of the nice things about Worlds Week is that transfers and all the other kind of stuff that goes on outside of the peloton dies down for a week while everyone focuses on the World Championships, and that'll start up again this week, but let's talk about it. First, U23 junior races. Like I said, we're going to be kind of brief about this, but we had the first ever standalone U23 road race, which was very exciting. I found the tactics pretty interesting, and I think especially given that no one really knew how the course was going to be ridden, that the way that the U23 race, after watching it, I thought, oh man, actually, teamwork might be a much bigger factor than I had originally anticipated with how hard the course was. I thought that it didn't really matter how deep a team was. But then the way that the French team rode the U23 race and were able to take that with Celia Jerry, that was like a pretty incredible bit of teamwork from the 3-person French team with multiple attacks in the final bit from Marion Bunel. Like, she was incredible, and early on in the race, like they just rode an incredible race, the French team, and to take that first standalone jersey was huge for France.
Yeah, they did it so well, but I think also it's teamwork, but you also need to have the team you need to have the strength in depth in numbers. So you can have the numbers, but you also all have to be really good. And I think that's what the French team had in that U23 race. They were, especially in that final, with two very strong riders. And that made the difference. Yeah.
I think both Marion Brunel and Celia Jerry were like two of the top riders at the Tour de l'Avenir. So, yeah, I mean, they started off with an advantage there anyway.
Yeah, I think, and this was the first standalone under 23 race, and I think like we've been asking for this for so long, but it's tough that the first time was in Rwanda, and I think later in this episode we can talk about the event itself and, being a success, I would say. But, there was a lot of countries that didn't bring a certain amount of people for one event or another, a lot of people that chose not to go themselves as well. So I think despite the location being a really tricky thing for many countries, the under 23 women's race was still a success. And I think moving forward, that was really important for that to remain standalone.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting to me, like, which nations went all in on the U23 road race and which didn't. And, like, for example, you had the British team. They didn't even send a team to the elite race. They focused solely on the U23 race, and their top rider was 12th, Imogen Wolf. So they didn't even get into the top 10, having like put all that focus on the U23 event. And there were so many European nations that like had to kind of pick and choose which event that they had more focus on. And I found that really fascinating. And that's obviously going to change a lot going into next year. Well, actually, maybe not, because next year is in Montreal. So there's still going to be nations that are going to pick which event they want to have more firepower towards, put more resources behind.
Yeah, I think in general it was a really entertaining race, and it was also good. Like, I think it showed already a lot, like what could happen in the elite women's race, and it's cool that you see that also the top U23 riders, they choose to ride the U23 race, which I mean that maybe sounds very like logical, but I think there's also, you could also, I don't know, being Marion Bunel or something, you could also choose to ride the elite race, of course. So I think that, yeah, it's great that they see the added value, even though, yeah, you're not really able to wear the jersey that much if you win it. Yeah, and also some federations did it. Yeah, the Dutch didn't send a team at all to the U23 race. Yeah.
Yeah, that was surprising to me because it's such a strong nation that I would have thought that they would have sent a team to the U23 race for sure. But yeah, they were just one of the ones. I think they may have been the most surprising to me that they didn't, honestly, because you'd think that the Dutch Federation has a pretty good backing, like pretty good financial situation.
At first, there would also not have been a junior team at Rwanda. That was very pretty last minute decision to still send the junior men and women team, because no, the Dutch Federation doesn't have a lot of money, to be honest. So it's and this particular championship was very expensive for federations. Yeah.
Yeah. This was, I mean, not only the travel, which was really expensive. When we'll hear from Alison Jackson later in the episode about Canada's situation going into the Worlds this year, but the travel was really expensive, and then lodging was really expensive. There was a lot of problems with like Airbnbs and hotels jacking up their prices a ton with the Worlds coming into town, and so a lot of nations like were really strapped when it came to paying for lodging, and like for if you were there for the TT through the road race, you were there for like 10 days. So it was a huge expense to go down there for this. I want to talk for a second about the winner, just because she is one of this was her first year racing on the world tour scene with FDJ Suez, and she signed through next year as well. And she's a huge talent when it comes to cyclocross, and when it comes to road, she's only really kind of tapped into that in the last like 2 years. She's done a bunch of junior races and stuff, and won some races before last year. But last year she really like came onto the scene, and she won both the road race and the TT for the junior national championships in France. She won the junior cyclocross world title. So this isn't even her first world title. Won the European U23 title in cyclocross, like at the end of the season, because cyclocross is weird like that. And then this year she had an incredible run at Tour de l'Avenir. She won 3 stages and the points classification before going into the World Championships like on a high. And so this is maybe this is the biggest win of her career so far, but it's coming from a string of really impressive results that I just can't wait to see what it means for her future. And she'll be going into the Europeans this week as the U23 world champ.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think she's been on FDJ for a little while, but I'm not sure if they've actually raced her with the team. So I wonder if next year she will pick up a few more road races with them.
She must. I mean, she did the Giro this year and stuff. So she was doing a bit, but she's been, I mean, like if you're not following cycling super closely, then I don't know if people would have really heard of her before now.
I think because I do a lot of because of Eurosport, we commentate basically on every women's race now. So we did see her quite a bit this year, but not really prominent. Like, and I know, remember we talked about it this year also during commentary. Like, imagine how it is also a little bit for her to. I mean, last year she was second at the World Champs behind Kat Ferguson, was she? Oh no, she was actually 5th. fifth and 18th on the TT. She had a really good year as a junior, and we were talking about the fact that then you see someone like Kat Ferguson like steaming into the elite category with already taking wins, etc. Like how that is, because you always compare yourself with the ones from your own generation, right? But then she did such an amazing World Championships, and that's of course the most important race. While Ferguson didn't even finish, I think. So it can also be on that age. It's still so it's still so unpredictable. Also,
second place was also a rider that I think we should just mention because she had an incredible World Championships. Victoria Chadnova. She rides for Visma Lease Bike during the season, but second in the TT and in the road race for the U23s. And she's elite Slovakian TT and road race champ. So that's what we normally see her in that jersey when she's racing with Visma Lease Bike. And it was just a really, really impressive performance from her. And I think just another name to keep in mind, and another cyclocross rider, really kind of coming into this world with a really good performance. In the junior race, Paula Ostiz won for Spain from a kind of group of 4, 5, 8, from a group of 8-ish, ahead of Chantal Pegolo of Italy, and Anya Groisman was third for Switzerland. We could talk more about this, but I really want to get to the elite race because, frankly, I'm just really excited to talk about it. But Paula is one of the most promising up-and-coming junior riders in the peloton. She's like incredible, an insane amount of wins to her name already, and she's only 18, and she's one of the riders who's already signed for Movistar through 2028. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of her in the coming years. All right, let's talk elite race. Should I sing the Canadian? No, just kidding. Well, going into the U23 race, a Canadian was favored to win in Isabella Holmgren, and I think Canada put a lot of pressure on themselves to win the U23 race with Isabella after she won L'Avenir, 3 stages of L'Avenir and the overall. But it was another Canadian who kind of forced herself into the spotlight on Saturday. Magdalene Valieres won the race from a breakaway, with Niamh Fisher-Black coming second and Mavi Garcia third. Well, all the favorites looked at each other. Very much a Group 2 syndrome type situation going on. It was, I think, nothing that anyone expected to happen with how hard the course was going into it. I know I really thought it was just going to be the favorites that were going to be the only ones who would be able to make it. But when you have a course that hard, it sometimes means that the tactics go wonky, and it went in favor of Mags, who also came into this race on the best form of her life, she said. And she really put a lot behind preparation for the World. So, well, there are 2 main conversations to have about this. One of them is how much the favorites really messed up when it came to tactics for this race, and also just how incredible she is as a rider, and hopefully what this means for her future career, because up to this point she's really only been a domestique at EF Education only.
Yeah, I thought her win was so good, and I think if you hadn't watched the race and you just saw the result sheet, you would have thought, what happened? Did she get lucky somehow? But she absolutely worked the race to perfection. And I think just her interviews afterwards saying how much it came down to self-belief, and she actually thought that she had a chance in this race, and she put herself forward and rode the breakaway and did it smart. She wasn't so desperate that she rode herself into the ground, but she worked with the other riders in the breakaway, and then she was just the strongest there, and the favourites missed out. But I think she would have done all right back in the bunch anyway, if that had been how it played out.
Yeah, she looked good, didn't she?
Yeah, she looked really good, but I think what was in the favor of the breakaway is that they had much more an equal pace throughout the race, and I think that was really beneficial on this course, and especially with the altitude. So they didn't have the attacking and the stop and go, and they could ride a steady pace, and I think that was in her favor. And and in favor of the breakaway to stay away. Because I think what you saw actually was a really weird race behind also, with riders attacking, getting away, riding into a wall, basically getting dropped from the group of favorites, coming back again later. Like, for example, Brody, I think she got dropped, I don't know how many times, but she was able to keep like a stable, sort of a steady pace as well. Like, I think the climbs were maybe too hard for her, but she didn't like overcook herself. And I think that way she actually came in the end into a really good result. Like, if she would be in that breakaway, she could have done super well. You know what I mean? So I think also this course and circumstances were so incredibly hard that it was just a really good day to be in a breakaway. But of course, you also had to be able to be in a breakaway, to make it, to ride it, and to be still strong in the final. So it's definitely not luck, but I think it's, in the end, it turned out to be a really smart race tactic.
I think like if it was a spring classic, and I'm going to compare it to Roubaix, even though they're completely different, I think she took a bit of a leaf out of her compatriot Alison Jackson's book and how she won Roubaix, and that she wanted to get ahead of the race and found the opportunity to do so. And I suppose when you're not a favourite, you're not carrying as much of that burden of pressure, which definitely helps. And we've seen that time and time again in racing, where you've got someone that people aren't watching and you can kind of get away with it. You can sneak into the groups, especially if you've got good legs. And I'm sure that she had a really good think about how she could do well and maybe how she could win before the race. But because this is not a race that's ever been run before, less similar to the spring classics where people kind of have a good idea now of how they play out, this race was still such a big unknown. Despite watching the junior and the under 23 race, you still had to throw caution to the wind, I guess. And it was a really clear example of how sometimes fortune favors the brave, and not always, but definitely on this course. And she was obviously on a great day, great legs, great form. And I think Alison Jackson alluded to that in her post-race interview, that Mags had really, been quite serious about this prep, because she thought, this could be a great opportunity for me. So she did the work for it. It wasn't just a purple day for her that came out of nowhere. But you still had to put yourself in that position and to read that race and to see what else was going on around you. And she was looking at who was around her. She was thinking about who the riders who were with her, how they might play the final and what she needed to do to overcome that. So it was not a Kiesenhofer result at all. A bit like what Grace said, like it was a very well played race. And I think that the weight of that jersey might be tough for her in the year coming up. I hope that it provides some good opportunities for her, but I think that's tricky for some people that haven't had a big exposure to being a winner, a regular winner. So I hope that the team can look after her in that sense and not like create more pressure because of that jersey. But wow, like she's got talent.
I just loved it, how she attacks from the bottom of the final climb. She attacked into the climb. She didn't look back once. She just like, that was so amazing. And I think that was exactly what she said, like in that finish interview. Like she had the confidence, and she just did it. That was super, super impressive.
I mean, it's only her second win ever, and the podium ceremony was amazing. Cosmo Catalano made this amazing video of her on the podium having no idea what the protocol is in the order of receiving things, and how she tried to like call up Mavi and Niamh to take a photo before they'd played the national anthem. And it's just incredible to watch. Really, really funny, because she really, like, you could tell like she believed in herself, but when she was still standing on that podium, it was still so surreal for her, just like looking out at the team. And she like leaned over to Niamh once and was like, I don't know what to do. Like the whole thing was just incredible. And the only other race that she's won is Trofeo Palma in the early Mallorca races in January last year. So it's like, it's been over a year since her last win. It's not even a world tour win. And now she's the world champion. And it's just like, and like you said, Gracie, it's not like a Kiesenhofer situation where like, obviously Anna was very gutsy to do that move, but I don't know if even she thought I'm going to attack and win the Olympic road race. And Mags went into this race like fully believing that she was going to win, that she could win, and to walk away having done that is just amazing. And she's only 24. Up to this point, she's only been a domestique. She's never really had any freedom. And I think now, like for a team like EF Education Oatly that has so desperately been trying to find a star rider and have had many incredible performances with a lot of their young riders like Veronica Ewers and Kim Kadzo, they've had some really great performances, but then the expectations of how to follow that up have been really humbling for them as riders. And now they have Mags, who like clearly has the mindset to be a winner and hopefully like is able to back it up next year with the support of the team that she hasn't gotten before to be a leader.
Yeah, I think another big difference with the Kiesenhofer win is also that this group, it never got a huge advantage. Like, I think the group of favorites did see the danger of this group, but they simply weren't able, especially in the final, they weren't able to close the gap. Of course, they've been looking a lot to each other, but yeah, I think also this group was just really strong. And I think the podium ceremony was anyway so cute, and it was so great with three extremely happy riders. Like also Mavi Garcia was like, oh, I loved her on that podium. Like she was so happy, and she did an amazing race as well.
Yeah, the celebration with the Spanish team was so sweet to watch, and I could hear them yelling, "Another year, another year."
Yeah, because she doesn't, I mean, in theory, hasn't announced a contract for next year. And after the year that she had, a tour stage win and third in the World Championships, I mean, that's insane. That's really, really cool from Mavi.
Yeah, I'm sure she could get another contract if she doesn't have one with Jayco. It just depends whether she wants to continue, but she looks like she's enjoying it.
We have a lengthy audio diary from Alison Jackson, teammate of Magdalene Valieras, both on her trade team EF Education Oatly and on the Canadian team.
Wow, it's incredible to get to be a part of a team that produces a world champion. I mean, it's so hard to win a bike race, and then to be able to win the bike race that is the world championship is crazy. I've known Megs for a while, since she was junior and looking up to me, and then we got to be teammates in 2023 and until now. Yeah, we had DS as her coach telling her to try to spend as much time with me to learn confidence, to learn to be a bit more aggressive in the bike race. And I just have seen in the last 3 years her really grow into confidence. Last year was the first time when she, wanted to say that she wanted to win a bike race. And, this year really like coming to the World Championships, saying she'd done all this prep. I mean, she was telling me she was going all in for this race course, altitude training, the weighing the grams of rice to carb load, all the training. I mean, she is such a disciplined, diligent athlete, with the gym, with the stretching, with the sleeping 10 hours and a nap and hitting the training numbers. She really, really committed. When we show up to the race and she says, Alison, like, I'm in my best shape ever, best power numbers ever. And like, I want to win. Well, heck, if she says that, I'm in. And I'm just straight up already really proud of her for backing herself, having the confidence in herself that she's good. And I mean, we know in bike racing you have your ups and downs, and seeing her go through all of those and hopefully being a good mentor to her. And yeah, so just so proud of the growth I've seen in her as a human and as a bike racer. And wow, what a day to put it all together. She needed to be bold and race hard and leave it all out there and get to that line solo. And she found a way to do it. Just rode really well. I mean, I came here, honestly, this isn't a course for me. And as a Canadian athlete, we all have to pay our own way to get to whatever world championships we're going to. And it's not cheap getting to Rwanda. But, I mean, I really wanted to be here. If Meg said, she set the bar high for what she wanted to accomplish. And I was like, well, heck, Megs. If you're going to have such a stellar result, I want to be there for it. I want to experience it with you. I want to be at the finish line when you win. My whole goal of this race was just to help captain the team. You really need that in a race when you have no radios. And we had a couple newer girls who don't race at the World Tour level. So just to, manage the team and how we were going to set Megs up. Yeah, and if I could stay in for half the race or longer, doing the positioning work. That's about how it worked for me. It was more of a positioning race than I realized from watching the other races this week. It always looked really, it's a really attritional race, and it's all about the climbs. And honestly, in the end, you needed to be a climber to make that happen. But amount of energy you could save by being in a top position in the climb and sagging back a little bit and repeating that over and over. So to do that, to help bring Megs into all those positions, just to save. But she made great choices all day, sitting in that kind of fourth, fifth wheel. Yeah, not being the first person to follow something. Her teammates followed a few things, and then, it was up to her in the final. But yeah, she rode well, good position. Oh man, and just like eyes on the prize. And I knew when she was in that breakup 3, Mavi and Niamh, I thought that's perfect because none of them can sprint. And so I was so confident in Meg. She's a punchy rider, and the other two girls are a little bit more long climbing kind of girls. But yeah, I knew whenever Megs decided to go, she was going to go and not look back. And you saw that happen from the bottom of the cobbled climb. And making that separation, not looking back, and fully committing, believing in herself, knowing that she had the strength to do it. And wow, I got pulled from the race 2 laps ago, and that was the best thing that I could do, because when she came by in that last lap, and I just shouted at her, believe in yourself. You're good. Believe in yourself. And I think when you have the support of teammates, you can do so much with that belief. You first have to believe in yourself, but then when you can have your closest people around you, with some clout in the sport, if you will, to also say, yes, it is possible. You should believe in yourself. That goes a long way. And Megs has been that person for me in my Vuelta win. The team said, it would be, Alison, this is a day we'll ride for you, and we think you can get a top 5. And I came to the meeting and I said, girls, I want to win. And I thought I would need to convince them that this was possible. But I remember Megs just being my ultimate best cheerleader, and man, doing the work, so much work for me, dropping on the climb to bring me back, and then the lead out, and it was nuts. And so this is such a beautiful team sport, and I love that I could ride in support of her as a hype girl, but also technically in the race. And then honestly, when you win a race, you just want to celebrate with the people closest to you, the people that you've journeyed with through the whole year of your ups and downs. You've been in bike races. You've seen the hard work. You've seen what it has produced and when you've been unlucky, and when you win a race, you finish and you're the first one there. and we're here with our national team, but we don't work with the national team like we do with our professional teams. And so to be that person there that knows all that she's fought for in her career, that she's had to stand up for herself when people haven't given her the time of day or haven't believed in her. Yeah, to be able to help her believe that this is true, that she did it, and really celebrate her in a personal way. So, I mean, yeah, wow. It's just a memory I will have forever. This is just the best. And it was so special to be with her, in the race and at that final. I mean, Canadian women have been bossing the show for a long time. It's unfortunate that this sport is so male-centric because you haven't been hearing the story so much, but the Canadian women, we've won a monument. Canadian women, we've won a world champion. Our Canadian men in all of history haven't done that. And, even we see with Isabella and Ava Holmgren also taking the medals at cyclocross mountain bike world championships. Like, man, and the young kids coming up, Sydney getting fourth in the junior women's world championship road race. I mean, Canadian women are on fire. So I'm just really looking forward to how many more young athletes come up through the ranks because of this. The ripple effect will be huge, but for now, I am so proud of Megs. Just so proud.
Can we talk a little bit about the race of Garcia and Niamh Fisher-Black? Second and third, they were also remarkable on the day. They were really strong, but also smart.
Yeah, and especially for Niamh going in, New Zealand only had 2 starters with her and Ella Wiley, and the 2 of them were always in every single split that needed to happen. They were when Niamh was in the front group and Brody made that attack to try to bridge up to that breakaway, Ella was there. So for such a small team, they were very mighty. And I think you compare, New Zealand against France, which France went in with the biggest team when it comes to depth and strength, with one of the biggest favorites of Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, and then New Zealand totaled them. The 2 of them just outplayed, outsmarted, outrode every big team, and it was just incredible. And Niamh, she's a rider who's had so much expectation on her for a really long time, and she has great wins, and she always churns out good performances, especially in the stage races in the summer. And this tour, she was really, really impressive in the second half of the race and that attack on the Queen stage. But she also, I think, has had so much expectation from so young that this result is just. She was our first ever U23 world champion when it was still combined with the elite race. And now she stood on the podium, not 3 years later, she stood on the podium of an elite race. And it's just, as a big Niamh fan, I'm really, really proud to see her, up there on the podium. But it was also just such a gutsy race from her and from Ella, I think.
Yeah, I was torn in the final. I was definitely cheering for Niamh as well, but I would have been happy for any of those 3 to win because they're such I think they're such good characters in the peloton and really wholesome bike riders. And as you said, I think it's the first world's podium where we've seen all 3 happy and not someone standing there disappointed. So it was a really heartwarming race, despite none of them really being predicted to be there.
We also have an audio diary from Amanda Spratt.
Hey everyone, Spratty Spratt in Kilgali, Rwanda, post the World Road Race Championships. I am currently laying on my bed completely dead. thinking about packing, not wanting to pack after a really epic race. It was pouring rain right before the start, which was a bit of a concern because when I went walking here earlier in the week, I almost slipped over on a white line. So I was pretty happy that the roads also dry out here quickly. From the start, it was, I would say, not a typical Worlds. Like, I think everyone was a bit worried about the altitude and the heat. We've seen all the races blow apart, during the week. So I think there was a bit of hesitation there, but Karina Schrempf went up the road trying to do a Anna Kiesenhofer from Tokyo, but unfortunately that didn't work out. And once the move started going, it was actually the Dutch started the attacks. And then eventually a break got up the road. So that actually won the race in the end. But it's just one of these crazy courses today where I think you only had 2 or 3 bullets to shoot. And if you shot them at the wrong time, you really paid for it. So I put myself in that category. I think, a few others were the same. There were definitely some surprising riders getting dropped earlier than what we thought. And yeah, I mean, chapeau to the breakaway. Like, it's pretty cool. I'm very happy with that podium. I think Magdalene Valieras, amazing. I think she's been knocking on the door all year, but I mean, to win the world is just out of this world. And I'm definitely stoked for Niamh in second, my Little Trek teammate, fellow Oceanian. And yeah, as a New Zealander, she has to fully fund the trip, and she had some troubles getting here. And yeah, she made this trip bloody worth it. So I'm super stoked for her. And yeah, as an Aussie team, it was a hard race, but Brodie, she punctured. She spent a lap chasing, no convoy, eventually got back, then went off the front, then bridged across to the break. So, I mean, yeah, she's disappointed, but she had an amazing ride and amazing week too. So I think for the future, that's cool. It was her first time being leader at Worlds as well. So it's going to be like a watch this space thing, I reckon. And I think my highlight of the day, apart from the crowds, were on the cobbles. People called me Grace a few times, so her spirit lives on, and I'm definitely going to tell her about that soon. Quite an honour, I reckon. But I'm definitely very happy never to see those cobbles again because, yeah, once the legs go, they were brutal. And yeah, just chilling. We're going to have a meeting, dinner. I was the idiot that had my flight booked to go back tomorrow. The other girls were a bit smarter because they're actually off on a safari tomorrow morning, 5:30 a.m. They were actually going to stay and watch the men's race, but then there was the option for the safari. So they're going to go and see the big 5 and then maybe get back for the end of the men's race. But I'm pretty jealous. And yeah, that's it. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah, like we were talking about, I think the strongest in the breakaway group won on the day, and the second strongest, Niamh, I think she was smart. She did look like one of the strongest in the group or the groups that kept splitting and reforming again, but I don't think she ever panicked either. I think she looked really steady and calm on the bike, and I was same to Grace. I was really hoping that she could take the win, but very much in agreement that any one of those 3 would have been a great story. And same with Garcia. Like, we've definitely been critical of her in the past about overriding races, particularly on climbs, and exposing herself a bit too much. But I think that she's learnt a lot this year, and I think she's taken a lot of confidence from that tour win, and you could see that playing out in the Worlds race. She looked, again, less panicked, a bit more calm, a bit more confident in herself, looking around at how the other riders were looking, and trying to just pull the reins in a little bit on her abilities. So yeah, it's super nice to see her stoked about it. But I don't think I have many faults for any of these 3 riders. I think that they mostly made good decisions. They put themselves in the best position possible, and that was what won the race at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think with how incredible the outcome was, how happy the podium was, the other side of the coin is just the disappointment from all the major nations and all the big riders going into it, and how much they really dropped the ball when it came to riding on the front foot I would say. Everyone was looking at the French team going into this race. They had the depth, especially when it came to a course like this. And they had Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, who won the Tour, and I think everyone really thought could take a result here. You have the Dutch, who are, the strongest cycling nation in the world for the women. With some really, really strong options for a win. And then the Swiss team ended up really being the strongest team in the race. I think they had riders in the break. They had, really, really good options with both Elise Chabbey and Marlon Reusser. And in the end, Reusser said she had attacked when that group was clearly too far away. Like they just waited way too long to try to chase them back. And I think the way that break also went was really weird, because it was like not necessarily an attack. It was like Avita Music kind of made a dig, and then Elisa Longa Borghini and one of the German riders just sat up on the front. So it wasn't even, I think it was Franzi. It wasn't like some stinging attack that got that breakaway away. It was more like there was a separation and there was no attempt from Elisa to weld it back together. And I think she saw Barbara Malcotti going up the road with that group, and she thought, oh, well, this will be good for me. But then, there was no cooperation in the back to try to chase that down. And like Iris said, there was attacks going, like Elisa attacked a couple times, but then every time nothing happened and they would all sit up, and that really lent itself to the breakaway. All the big nations, I think, like it was pretty disappointing to see how they raced. And I don't know how much of it, this could be a case for like having race radios in a race like this or not having race radios, because obviously the finale was pretty amazing and the result was really cool. And part of that was that there wasn't a way to communicate with each other on the road. Like there was no way for Demi to be like, okay, Rihanna, how are you feeling up there in that break? Can you win this race? Should we do something? For the Dutch, because they had representation, but in the end, like Rihanna couldn't keep the same pace as Mavi and Niamh and Mags. And so many things going on, so many things. But in the end, all of the big nations kind of said like, oh yeah, we waited too long, and we didn't, like the Swiss were like, oh, we didn't have to do anything. We had riders up the road, but like they didn't have riders who could win the race up the road. So at that point, you do have to do something.
Yeah, I think there's like so many reasons why it played out like it did. As you said, like, first of all, most of the favorites looked at the break going and saw that they had a teammate there and thought, oh, fine, we're covered by that. We don't need to worry about it, without thinking, well, what are we going to do if it gets too much time and we need to bring it back? Another thing is the French seemed to be so confident in Pauline and the strength of the team as a whole that they didn't seem to actually think about how they were going to win the race. And they probably thought that the Dutch were going to do some work for them. But Demi didn't seem like she was on a good day at all, which I think contributed towards the Dutch hesitating because they actually weren't that strong. So yeah, it was super interesting. I am on the fence about whether there should be radios.
I think radios wouldn't have made a single difference in this race, to be honest, because you see a group of 8 going up the road, and for example, for the Dutch, there is one rider in a group of 8. That's already not enough. If you're 1 on 8 for the Dutch, you should be there at least with 2 people. And then you have one rider who has already been super active all of the race. So she's not going to win it from that break because she's already too tired. I think Marcus actually was one of the best riders of the Dutch team in the end. She did an amazing race, but it was not, you couldn't expect from her anymore to be on the podium after such a race. So I think, if you're in that group of favorites, you see that group going away, that you shouldn't give them too much time, and you should either jump with a rider to that group or chase it. And I think most teams, like the Dutch, I think you're right, Grace, I think they were just not good enough. It's so simple. And radios wouldn't have changed it. Anna van der Breggen definitely had an off day. Demi was not in top shape, or she had some issues I understood later with like nutrition Royakkers was not on her best day. So basically, they only had Van Aanrooy, who was really helpful in that group. So yeah, and I mean, then yeah, the French, I think they were actually the ones who made the biggest mistake, but also maybe yeah, in the end, didn't have the power to force it to bring the group back, because I think again with these circumstances it is really hard to close a 1.5 minute gap or a 2 minute gap. And and also Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, if she would have jumped, she couldn't have. You can make up just 1.5 minutes, even if you're Tour de France winner, you know. So yeah.
The Italians also, like, they lost pretty much their whole team, like four of their riders DNF pretty early on. So it's not like Elisa had a ton of help as well. And like all of those favorites were all looking at each other for a reason. Like they're all like almost on equal footing going into the final like 2 laps, I would say, on who could win the race if it was all combined, if they were at the head of the race, if it was like Kasia, Demi, Kim, you know, like Reusser, that whole group of riders going into the finale, it would have been a much different race, obviously, but like they're looking at each other for a reason. Like Reusser said she didn't want to bring Kim to the line, and like Kasia doesn't want to bring anyone to the line, and Elisa would probably want to bring Kasia to the line because she can outsprint Kasia. So like the combination makes a big difference, and when they're all together, then yeah, like none of them really seem to know exactly what to do, and none of them seem to be on the best form of their life on that day, except maybe Elisa, who, you know, was pretty clearly riding really well. And she doesn't have the raw power to be able to just drag it back. Like, I think the only strategy that I can think of that would have, you know, maybe worked in one of the bigger nations' favor is if Reusser had earlier in the race determined that they were riding for Shabby and just got on the front and just like powered back and tried to close that gap, because she is obviously on incredible form with the time trial win. She has the ability to do that kind of effort, and then Shabby would just have to do her attack later in the race. And that's really the only thing that I can think of for the big nations, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, the team depth of team didn't really matter. It was like so scattered and there were so many riders out of the race early on.
I think the depth of the team mattered. Like if you look, for example, back to that U23 French race, if you use it at the right time, like the Italians, they burned all their riders chasing Shireen van Anrooy, for example. And that's already, but that's already a sign that, you know, how hard it is to close a gap of a minute. If you have to burn 4 riders to chase a domestique in the Dutch team, then but I mean, it shows, right, how hard it is and how difficult it is to close a gap in this on this course. Yeah. And the Demi said afterwards in an interview with Dutch television that they were all just looking at each other and they were just all like basically in pain. They were all like, you know, I have no more matches to burn here to attack or to chase. So it's weird.
Yeah, those last few laps looked pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Something like there's definitely there's arguments for both things about the radios. I think that they should have radios because, like, if you're going to have them for every other race of the year, that's the sport then. I think something that's actually potentially a bigger factor, though, because I also agree with Iris that I don't think that the race would have changed much with radios in this instance, is that I think that we should have more uniform team sizes across the board, or at least on the bigger nations. I think the way that the rider allocations per nation is inherently unfair and actually keeping the sport back in some ways, especially at a global level. And I think when you've got a team of 7 riders or a few teams of 7 riders, that's very intimidating to everyone else. And of course, they're not going to be using the same strategy as if everyone had a team of 6, or at least, you know, 15 teams had a team of 6.
Yeah, and also, like when you're in the race and there's the Dutch and the French or whatever with full teams, then it's inevitable that everyone's going to look at them to do the work, regardless of what their strategy is. So I think it adds to the negative racing.
Yeah, and we see that at every championships because the same few nations keep winning, so they keep getting the big squads. So like it's like this race was great because we did see some underdogs performing and winning and some good examples of how you don't need a big team, but at the end of the day, the tactics do get hindered by the team sizes as well, I think.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the course. I think on this course, it wouldn't have made a huge difference. You see that in the men's race as well. Like, I think the team size and the men's race wouldn't have made a difference if the Belgians would have been with 3 or with 8 or the. But of course, at other world championships, it makes a huge difference, and it's also like you say, it's like maybe kind of like a mental advantage that you have as a nation, being on the start line with so many riders. Yeah. In that way, it was so refreshing, this World Championships and this podium. Yeah.
Yeah, very refreshing, but in some ways, like we all wanted to see the big guns go head to head, and they didn't quite do that. So, like,
True.
I think there's a tiny bit of a sour taste in the mouth, but I think that the joy of those 3 riders on the podium really overtakes any bad feelings that we
Yeah.
might have about not seeing the favorites really duke it out at the end, which they kind of did, but kind of didn't.
But at least, Abby, the Dutch didn't fuck up as a team. So in their tactics, so in that way,
That's true.
they did ride as a team. They were just not good enough. Yeah. On a positive note. Yeah.
Well, you take the wins where you can.
After having seen the race, I feel like it would have been good to have Lotte Kopecky in her full form there. Like, I think that course and that finish would have suited her, but yeah, she wasn't there, so probably irrelevant.
I mean, I guess that like Gracie mentioned it already, but this was a brand new continent for the World Championships, a whole new type of course. And what do we think? Was it a success?
Yeah, it looked good. I wasn't on the ground, but I think beforehand there was like a lot of worry that they wouldn't be able to pull it off. The organization wouldn't quite be up to scratch or something. But from everything that I saw of the race, like it looked like it was really well run. There weren't any issues. The spectators were really respectful and excited, and a great atmosphere, and the roads looked smooth, and yeah, there weren't like bad crashes or anything that I know of. So I think it was a success. Maybe the men's race was too hard, but that's not a discussion for this podcast.
Yeah, I think the riders that I spoke to were all very positive about the experience, but yeah, I still think that that's absolutely a no-go to organize a World Championships in a dictatorial country with such a regime. I think, yeah, I still can't believe we actually had this World Championships there, and I can be still really mad about it. I think this is such a perfect example of sport washing, and I absolutely hate it, and therefore I think it should not have been in Rwanda, simply. And I think the course was also too hard, to be honest, to have a really interesting championships. But I mean, yeah, at the end we have amazing winners, but yeah, I just hate it that the UCI makes this kind of decisions just for the sake of money.
Yeah, I'm sure that it always comes down to money, and Iris does it. She knows that better than most of us when it comes to cycling. I was hoping, and I also agree with Iris that for me it's somewhat inappropriate to have it in a place like that, not on a continent like that, but I was hoping at least that this event has brought something financially positive to that city and that region, at least. So, of course, some of those camera shots that panned out showed some really amazing scenery, but also a lot of poverty as well. So I hope that this event brings something good to that area, if nothing else. But like Grace touched on it, everyone seemed super respectful. All the reports that I saw and got was that everyone was treated really warmly and friendly, and you could see in the race coverage that the spectators were being much more respectful than things that we see in Europe sometimes. So I think that was a positive, that they were showing off their country in the best light. But it's hard to ignore that the political situation there, and if a rich sport like cycling, is appropriate to be in a place like that. I've done World Cups over in South Africa, which is a different situation, but it definitely feels strange when you're riding around on a $15,000 bike through some of the poorest areas that I've ever seen. So, yeah, I think if you can bring something positive to a community, that's really important, but you also have to weigh up the political implications of that. So thanks for raising that point, Iris.
Yeah, they did a really good episode about this on Spin Cycle last week. Listen to that because he talked a lot about the political situation in the region and the wider real world implications of having the World Championships in Rwanda. And I think, yeah, like with most sports watching and things, that the times that politics and sports are intertwined, most of the time the two come hand in hand, but in this particular instance it's like a little bit more it's just a bigger situation. You can't overlook the political situation in Rwanda and the choices that the UCI made when they decided to have the World Championships there. All right. Well, man, just such an incredible World Championships, and we still have a good amount of racing before the season closes out. This week is the European Championships. All of the big names will be back in their national team kit to vie for the European jersey. The time trial is on Wednesday, 24 kilometers, with a little bit of climbing, mostly in the end of the race. They finish on like a 1.3 kilometer climb. And that's the elite, and the U23 is on Wednesday. And we're going to see Reusser line up. We're going to see a couple riders who didn't race the Worlds. Misha Bredewald will be there for the Dutch. Ellen van Dijk is on the start line. And I'd been told that her last race was CMAC Ladies Tour. Iris is looking at me like she knows something.
Is Ellen van Dijk on the start line?
No, I mean, she's on the provisional start list, but I don't know if that's right.
No, Ellen is not selected. For the Dutch, it's Bredewald and Lieke Nooyen.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bredewald is going to race. And yeah, she didn't race Worlds. So going into the Europeans this week, I think that there's going to be a lot of riders who raced the Worlds who had to fly back from Rwanda to Europe and go straight into the Europeans in remote France. And that will definitely play into a little bit of like fatigue, and especially who races the time trial on Wednesday. The road race, the U23 road race, is Friday. Very short, 85.6 kilometers. It's like just a Saturday spin compared to a Friday spin compared to the road race at Worlds. Still a good bit of climbing. There's one longer climb and then some shorter climbs on the finishing circuit. And so that's going to be a fun one. And then the elite race is on Saturday, October 4th, another short one, 116.1 kilometers, 1,798 meters elevation gain. And that one's like, they do a big climb in the beginning, ride to the finish. There's a circuit, and there's a little 800 meter, really steep climb on the finishing circuit. They go out and do a longer climb and then come back and do the finishing circuit twice. So when they finish the final climb on the course, it's 5 kilometers to the finish. And I think that it's a course that really suits someone like Elisa Longoborghini. And I think I wrote in my preview in the newsletter that I think Elisa is maybe the number one rider to look at for this, because there's not a single rider who responds to defeat the way that Elisa Longoborghini does. And I think she will have been very, very disappointed after the road race in Rwanda. And she's gonna, she wants a big win like this. So she's one to watch, but there's a bunch of favorites on the start list that are coming off of Worlds that are equally as disappointed as she is. So I think it'll be a good one.
Is Lorena racing?
In the provisional start list, she is there, but I don't think she is. It would be silly.
She's doing Gravel Worlds, which is the week after.
Mm.
Great planning.
Yeah.
And then Track Worlds.
Right. Okay.
That
Yeah.
is great planning. Like, it's not usually this close together, Europeans and Worlds.
No.
And then we still have, some Italian one days, and then we go to China for the end of the race season. So we'll wrap this up with Obsessions, because it's Life of a Showgirl rollout week. So
So close now, Abby. So close.
I've been listening back to all of her old albums, obviously, which I do on a weekly basis. But this week, a little bit more than normal. And so in the newsletter, I decided to rank all of her albums and pick my favorite and least favorite songs from each. Something that nobody asked for and nobody wants, but I did it anyway.
And it brought you much joy, I'm sure.
No, it was really stressful, actually.
Well, Abby, I'm sure you would be pleased to know that my little boy Noah is very much enjoying a bit of Taylor Swift, because we've been exposing him to lots of different kinds of music, and he's slowly getting a little bit of a bop going, and Taylor sometimes does it for him. It's very cute.
I love that. Grace, Iris, you guys have any obsessions?
Oh, I'm gonna say my veggie garden. I've got broccolini growing in there at the moment, which I'm gonna have for dinner tonight. And it's
yum.
quite
cool.
satisfying to just like go and pick your own vegetables from the garden.
That's hard to find in the grocery stores in Europe, so
Yeah, it's been the first time in my life that I've been able to like actually commit to gardening or like growing anything. Usually it dies when I go back to Europe. So yeah, pleased with that.
I'm just in my spare hours, like going down the internet looking for a secondhand bike trailer. So I have a way to get out on my bike next year when I have a baby. So any advice on bike trailers?
well,
Send it
I have
over.
one in my garage that has a ski attachment. If you want to come to Andorra and get it,
Oh, cool.
you can have it.
Not so useful in the Netherlands, but I'm sure it's useful for you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone so much for listening to the Wheel Talk podcast. We will be back next week to talk about Europeans. And huge thank you to Grace and Iris for joining us today. What a group to talk about the worlds.
It was fun.
Thanks for having us.
This episode was produced, edited, and mixed by Will Jones at Red Bricks Media.